Welcome to Total Spectrum Spotlight, an informative look and an insightful discussion of today's legislative issues and political trends.
Hello and welcome to Total Spectrum Spotlight. My name is Michael DiMaria. I'm partner and Southwest Regional Director for Total Spectrum. Our show is dedicated to informing our viewers from newsmakers and news shapers and our clients across North America. In this episode of Spotlight, we will focus on rural issues, including broadband and healthcare. Joining us today is Jim Campbell. Jim is a partner and Colorado director for Total Spectrum. Jim has more than 30 years experience as a lawyer, as well as a policy expert in the telecommunications and cable industry. Jim also serves as managing partner of Campbell, Killen, Britton, and Ray, a Denver-based law firm. Previously, Jim served as the Arizona State President for Quest Communications and as CenturyLink's Regional Vice President of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs for the Midwestern United States. Jim previously also served as Vice President of Policy and Law for Media One's Eastern U.S. region and Chief Commercial Counsel for AT&T's Southern region in the early 2000s. Jim, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be with you.
So Jim, you've been in the industry about 30 years and you've seen it grow from a little dial-up cable internet to now where broadband is exploded. One issue seems consistent in states and federally that we still haven't really solved the rural broadband issue. That continues to be a thorn in everyone's side. We've put a lot of money forward on it. How do you see the future? Do you think it's going to improve, and how do you see this administration attacking rural broadband issues?
Well, I definitely think it's going to improve. It has to. One of the issues has been, it's kind of been a moving goalpost. You know, what's an acceptable speed? When the FCC initially decided to convert the high cost support fund into what's called the Connect America Fund, which pushed about 4.2 billion out into the rural areas, the acceptable speeds were, 10 down, 10 meg down, and 1 upload speeds. And now it's considered unserved if you have less than 25 down and 3 up. So what happened is all these networks were built between 2011 and 2014. And within a year of being built, the speeds they can hold are obsolete. So clearly, there's been a lot of missed opportunities, I think, with Connect America Fund. So I think what the FCC will do, and I think what you're going to see the administration do if they push an infrastructure bill out, is try and future-proof this thing. So pick what you think is, was a luxury yesterday is a commodity today, right? And so they're going to have to set a speed that future-proofs it to some degree, but it'll continue, the bridge will continue to shrink and the gap will continue to get smaller. It's just going to take time and money.
It's interesting because we've seen this evolve from a top-down approach to, at least in Arizona, what they've launched this legislative session hopefully gets approved. We're looking at almost $35 million to run a broadband corridor on U.S. Interstate 40 from Flagstaff all the way to the California border by putting conduit in the ground and letting providers be able to provide more fiber through that. And then some of the CARES Act funding is going from Flagstaff all the way down to the Mexico border, again, to do the same thing, to try to get that middle mile solution moving forward. And obviously, the pandemic, it really opened a lot of scars. It was pretty clear where the issues were, where the issues weren't. But it was really prevalent in the rural areas. And we're also going to talk a little bit about rural healthcare, and those two kind of go hand in hand about how that hurts those communities if they don't have acceptable speeds in those markets. And I know our state has been doing an annual $10 million grant program, again, to start getting projects in the queue so that we can start reaching these communities of need and figuring out a way to do it. But it's just a massive scope to look at. Are you seeing anything else in the states that encourage you, or things that maybe we should do differently that might work better this time?
Yeah, Mike, in Colorado, when I moved back here from Arizona in 2011, there was a $58 million high cost fund available for telephone companies to get voice services to rural areas. Through a series of legislation we passed between 2013 and 15, we converted that fund to a broadband fund. And I think you've seen a lot of states do that. The other thing that we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it in Arizona, is municipalities are just not seeing in those last mile areas the providers making the investment. So they want to get in the business themselves. And as you know, historically, coming from the private sector world, providers have been pretty reticent about welcoming municipalities into the broadband and cable space. I think that's changing. I think to truly bridge that last mile, which is the most expensive investment, you're going to need to see some collaboration between the private and government sectors to get that done. And I think this infrastructure bill that this administration is looking at, I think will have the private-public partnership be a huge portion of that.
Well, that's encouraging because, again, after 20 years, I know I've been in this business.
Yeah.
We've never really gotten it right, and enormous opportunities. Well, let's talk a little bit about another issue. Obviously, in the Western states, we're more rural than most places, and rural healthcare is a big concern of a lot, telehealth, things of that nature. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you see there and what opportunities there are to solve some issues in rural healthcare?
Well, as part of the Connect America Fund, there's a portion of that, about I think $500 to $700 billion a year, which is earmarked towards rural healthcare. And so you've got a lot of providers, especially places like Alaska, Texas, where they go and tap into that fund. They take what a metro rate would be for a circuit, and they bill that to the providers, and then the fund subsidizes the difference between what would be the urban rate versus the rural rate. And that's just huge, especially as you see people working from home. They may not be in the cities and may need help. And I know that fund's been great in Alaska. We worked with a cable company up there that has done a lot of work with rural health facilities on reservations and the like. So I would imagine you're going to see some of this new infrastructure bill try and supplement what the fund currently does today. But it's an important issue.
The other issue that I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on is 5G. And what will 5G do and what will 5G not do? It's an amazing technology for the wireless side, but can you explain to our viewers a little bit about how 5G works and why that infrastructure still matters in the 5G world?
Oh, it's 4G, 5G, 12G. As I've always told people, whatever G you're working off, your wireless call is about 1% wireless. A figure I like to tell people is the world's usage of bandwidth doubles every 18 months. And so obviously the wireless spectrum cannot accommodate that usage. So when you make a call or implement anything on your mobile device and it hits a tower, it hits a piece of fiber in about 10 nanoseconds. So the infrastructure has to include fiber to support the tower sites as they're built. I know when we were at CenturyLink in Arizona, Mike, you and I spent a lot of time connecting mobile provider sites, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and we started in the cities and just worked our way out as kind of like a spider web. But most of these, 5G is great, but a 5G tower that has no fiber connected to it is about as viable as a Coke can. So the infrastructure needs to be there.
Sadly, I used to use the old analogy is you need a very large string because the cans keep changing on either end.
That's a very good analogy too. Yeah, no, that's right. So the infrastructure is going to support the 5G. It has to. They go hand in hand.
Well, Jim, I thank you for taking some time out today to let our viewers understand kind of some of the complex challenges that are out there. And hopefully we'll bring you back soon as these bills evolve.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike, and Happy New Year to you. And here's to 2021.
Looking forward to a good 2021. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time on Total Spectrum Spotlight.
Thank you for watching Total Spectrum Spotlight. For more information about Total Spectrum, please visit us at totalspectrumsga.com. Total Spectrum, strategies uniquely focused on your success.